name is Phil Donnelly and this is Sound Advice. Today we're going to look at recording the double bass on any budget, starting with the Shure SM57, which retails for about £100. Next mic we're looking at is the Aston Spirit, which retails just under £300. And the final most expensive mic we're looking at is the Neumann KM184, which is around £700–800. Couple of bonus things we're going to throw in there is see how the iPhone fares with recording the double bass and using a Realist pickup, which a lot of basses have installed anyway. Let's go and have a listen. So I used my universal audio interface to record these mics. Obviously the only one that isn't here is the iPhone, which records onto its hard drive inside, and then I had to airdrop them into Logic, which we'll come to that in a sec. You've got the 57, the KM184, Aston Origin and the Realist. I've gained them so they all were coming in as close as possible. The universal audio has lots of posh plugins and unison preamps and all that sort of thing, and I deliberately used none of that, so it should sound pretty similar if you're using a Focusrite or any other interface. Okay, for every channel I'm using a FabFilter EQ just so we can look at the analyzer and see what's coming in. You can do it on the normal Logic one or probably on any other one that comes free with your DAW. I'm just using this one because it's really good for the video because it's quite visual. So let's have a listen to the SM57. We'll run the pits first and then I'll slide the Arco in after. So the pits is on this side, Arco on this side. Take a listen. Interesting. So the 57 is our cheapest mic. It is a dynamic mic. Benefits of that, you're not stuck with the room sound. It's a very direct sound. So if you don't have, Abbey Road Studio 2 in your back garden, you can be at ease with the fact that you're not hearing all the reverb and other buzzes and things in the room. The cost of that is that there's not the hugest amount of low end in that mic. I don't think it'd be a huge problem, but if you're playing lots of low, loud bass notes, I think it would run out. If we just look at the picks one again, there's not a huge amount of information around there. It sort of drops off around 50, 40-ish, which is a shame because that would be quite useful in a track. But like I said, it's a good focus sound. Lots of the percussive nature of the bass is coming through there, which is what I was pushing for in that first section. So yeah, I don't think it's the worst sound in the world. Yeah, maybe just slightly low on bottom end. Okay, we're going to do the same exercise with the Aston now, which is our mid-priced microphone. This is a large diaphragm condenser mic, so a bigger capsule, and it is a condenser mic, so you're going to probably hear a lot more of the room and a lot more other things. I'll do the same test of playing a bit of the pits to start with, and then I'll ease the Arco in halfway through. Take a little listen. So yeah, a lot more bottom end there. If I just run it, we can see loads more information down at 40 and 30, and that's giving me a much bigger pit sound. I'm just going to run just the Arco. Just down my in-ears I can hear there's a high frequency thing which I'm not loving. But I think an engineer, or even if I dabbled it myself, could maybe try and get rid of that. Compared to the 57, a lot more of the room sound is coming through. Now, I've got some screens up in my room to try and keep it, not being too lively. It's not the end of the world, but worth noting that There's a lot more room sound, and that's what you'll get with a larger diaphragm. You hear a lot more of the other sounds around you. Okay, the next microphone is the KM184, which is the most expensive microphone in this shootout. It's a pencil condenser, so it's kind of like the Aston in the way it's a condenser, and like the 57 in the way it's a smaller capsule. So I guess sonically it might be somewhere in between. Same thing again. I'm going to run a bit of pits, then push the arco in. Pits on this side, arco on this side. Let's have a listen, see how we get on. So to me, already I think you can see why this is the most expensive mic. If we look at, there's plenty of bottom end there. If I just solo the pits, you've got all that percussiveness and that mid-range that we liked in the 57. The bottom end from the condenser capsule, which is getting loads more low end. It is roomier than the 57, but not as roomy as the Aston. I think that's certainly in our favour. Let me just solo the. Yeah, that's the roundest sound we've had in the arco take for sure. And also knowing how my bass sounds and those strings sound, that feels the most honest, but still quite flattering, thankfully, version of the recording. Okay, the last microphone we have to test is the iPhone. Okay, so here we have both the iPhone recordings up. I'm going to do the same thing of muting the arco and bringing it in slowly. Got pits on this side, arco on this side. I did have to reduce the gain on this by about 12 and a bit dB, but I guess that's the same principle of me having to gain the other mics to match, but it just has to be done in Logic rather than in the console. Let's have a little listen and see how it sounds. I mean, it's not a bad sound. Something that strikes me straight away is I can tell it's a lot more compressed than the other mics and the other sources. You can see that if you can just see where the cursor is now. There's nothing really goes louder or that much quieter than these sort of peaks here. But yet if we look at like the KM184, we've got some louder stuff here, some quieter stuff there. But it doesn't really, the differences in the iPhone are minimal. I'm also hearing so much more of the room. I did a bit of research, and I think the iPhone uses the bottom mic, or the iPhone I've got, which is a 13 Pro Max, uses the bottom mic. I've tried to line all those mics up as you saw on that photo earlier, so they're all kind of in line and facing the same way, but I'm hearing so much more of the room. And maybe similar to the 57, not a ton of bottom end, which could be problematic. And I think, like I said, if you sent this to an engineer who needed some bass for a track, and they had all this compression and all this room sound in there, that would be pretty limiting for them to deal with. But not an unusable sound. Okay, the last source we have to look at is the Realist. It isn't a microphone. It sits in the bridge of the bass, and it's a transducer, so it picks up vibrations, which is amazing if you are in an echoey room or a boxy sounding room, because it doesn't matter. It won't be picking up any of that sound. Of course, the downside to this is that any of that kind of, those extra sounds that we sort of take for granted, they will disappear too. So the sounds of like the fingers on the strings, or the way the bow kind of goes across the strings and all that sort of thing is lost. So it's quite a kind of nasally focused sound. Let's run a little bit of it and I'll do the usual trick. Just some pits first, then the arco come in a sec, and see how that sounds. So yeah, a pretty weird sound. It's not a sound that you associate with a wooden instrument at all. Now a lot of people say, "Oh, I hate the sound of those pickups, be it the Realist or any of them," but they're not worth writing off just yet. I've got a couple of EQs that I've set up already for both these Realist channels. These are both on the pits channels, and they're actually both on the arco channels as well. But these are just something I was messing around with earlier. It helped bring the Realist sound to life a little bit more. So I'll run it as it was, and then I'll turn these two EQs on as we go. First one. Second one. If we just have a listen to these. So that's just taming the sub a little bit. Just a really woofy note there. Getting rid of some of the boxiness. Some nasaliness. That's adding some high end, which on its own sounds pretty thin, but blended in, it does help bring that pickup to life. Similar kind of messing with some low end here. Bit more of that nasal reduction on this side. And there's kind of percussive thing I'm not loving there, so I've just pulled that down a little bit. And I could spend more time messing with this. The Realist isn't worth writing off just yet, because if we match it with the 57, suddenly that 57 might come to life. I think one thing we definitely said was that the 57 was lacking bottom end. So let's add the 57 in and see how they sound together. And that sounds great to me. We're getting all the nice bottom end from the Realist, and we're getting the details, the percussiveness, the kind of mid focus from the 57. We pulled out a lot of mids in the Realist because it sounded kind of all boxy, but that's just filled that in nicely with the 57. And these are our two cheapest mics. This is sort of in the region, I reckon you could get these two for about 300 quid, maybe even less second hand. That's a really lovely usable sound any engineer would be happy to receive or work with. We'll do the same thing for the arco as well. We'll bring that in. That's a great fix. So the Realist on its own, not the best. The 57 certainly lacking in bottom end. Let's get the Realist and the iPhone together, which are the two most attainable sources, and then compare it to the most unattainable ones, the KM184s. So this is the Realist and the iPhone, and I'm going to toggle between the two. Thank you so much for watching this sound advice video. I hope you learned something. Leave in the comments which mics or combination of mics you preferred. And yeah, it just shows you don't need to break the bank to record a nice double bass. Thank you so much.